Chapter 11. Tony Verrazzano rolled to his back, trying to figure out where he was and what had happened to him. He was outside, yeah. He'd been on patrol at the mansion, but now he was lying on the hard ground with his head aching like a son of a bitch. His gun was in his hand, and he didn't remember drawing it. In fact, he couldn't call up any memories from the past few minutes. How had he gotten here? He struggled to pull anything recent into his mind, but nothing would come to him. In a panic, he sat up too quickly and winced at the stab of pain. After checking the safety on the gun, he stuffed it into his shoulder holster, then pulled up his knees and clasped his hands around his legs. Pressing his cheek to his knees, he ordered himself not to start shaking. Something frightening had happened, and he didn't know what it was. Worse, he didn't even know how he'd gotten here. Yeah, he'd thought that before, hadn't he? Still clenching his hands around his legs, he carefully went back to the last thing he did remember. He'd had a meal in the kitchen of the whorehouse where Lang kept the girls he'd imported from Eastern Europe. Then he'd gone out on patrol. He'd been walking the ground, and something must have happened to him. But what? Had he seen something in the woods? Gone in here to have a look? And then what? Nothing like this had ever happened to him before, and he struggled to tamp down the fear coursing through him. Should he tell someone? What if an intruder had invaded the property, like the woman who had been here a week ago? She was still on the loose, and the boss had ordered all the guards to be extra vigilant. But he didn't think she was here now, or at least he didn't want it to be true. He got up and brushed off his clothing, feeling a lot of dirt on the back of his pants, like he'd been dragged into the trees. Could that be true? Fear trickled down the back of his spine as he scrambled to come up with an alternative scenario. Maybe he'd been investigating something in the woods, tripped over a tree root in the dark, fallen down, hit his head, and knocked himself out. Clumsy of him. Well, he wasn't going to say anything about it and risk getting fired from what he considered a very good job. Now what? Elizabeth asked, as they put distance between themselves and the mansion. We shut the place down. I hate the idea of letting that house of horrors operate for even the rest of today. But there's another reason we can't just go to the police. Those women are in the U.S. illegally. Probably they'll all be deported if we just call the cops. Yeah, even if they were brought here under false pretenses, they could be caught in the system. She sighed. I wish I knew more about it. I don't want to get them deported because I'm trying to help them. She thought for a moment. Maybe my best bet is going back to Sabrina and seeing if there's some way her friends in Baltimore can shelter them. He made a rough sound. We're getting ourselves in deeper every time we turn around. I know, but I want those women out of there, then to find a way to destroy Lang's whole operation. That's a tall order. How long has he been in business? I don't know exactly. She gave him a pleading look. I realize this whole thing is a mess, but I want to see it through, not just for me. Polly died because I was stalking Lang. Relief flooded through her when he said, Okay. I think we have to go find Sabrina. He tightened his hands on the wheel. She put her fingers on his arm, and she knew she didn't have to speak out loud for him to pick up what was in her mind. He turned off onto a 2-lane road and slowed, finding a clearing where he could pull off the blacktop. You want to talk about how we're going to work it when we go back to the house? He asked. Yes. What was your original plan? She flung her arm in frustration. I wish I knew. Probably I hadn't come up with anything definite. Which was why I hadn't acted. But you're thinking about something that might help. She grinned. You read me so well. When he'd cut the engine, she unbuckled her seatbelt and leaned toward him. Reaching for her, he pulled her close. They clung together. both of them thankful that they'd gotten away from the mansion. She pulled away so she could look at him. "What if we have a technique we can use?" He knew she was thinking about a book she'd read, about a girl whose parents had been part of a government drug experiment in college. The people who survived came away with superpowers. For example, the girl's father had been able to influence the action of others.